The college football experience. Washington Huskies at the UCLA Bruins game preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, presented by WinBet. Bet $100 at WinBet and get $100 free bet. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WinBet. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today.
This is Jim Mora, and you're listening to SGPN. Let her ride.
Yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience. Washington Huskies at the UCLA Bruins 2022 game preview episode. My name is Kobe Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I smoke and I drink, and I don't have stress, and I'm healthy.
There's a big one Friday night, and I had to bring on. I'm excited about this episode. I'll just put it like that. I'm super excited about this episode because these fucking teams have been playing one another since. I mean, this is going to be ruined potentially since 1932. I am joined by UCLA fan. All right, UCLA fan, but also the host of the Zed Run Gambling Podcast. You can give them a follow on Twitter at Zed Podcast, and also the Luck Stops Here's podcast. I've known this guy for like fucking 20 years almost. Give it up for my guy Scott Bowser. How you doing, pal?
What's up? How you doing, Colby?
Oh, it's always a good day when I can get you on the show, man.
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited to be here, dude. I'm excited because I can finally watch a UCLA game at home this season. I didn't have to travel to some sports book to find the Pac-12 network. I mean, because I do live here in Vegas, so I'm much better situated to find random games at places than most people are. I am lucky there, but still, sometimes it can cost me $60 just to watch an afternoon game because of drink prices.
Larry Scott, it is what was he spending again in Vegas? I read this article of him spending like. I feel like he spent a weekend trip to Vegas. He spent like almost $100,000. He had to be gambling. I mean, that's the only possible fucking answer. Larry Scott definitely, I think, part of the real demise of the potential demise of the Pac-12, or at least the future departure of USC and UCLA. But I guess we could talk about all of it here. This is a rivalry you might not have in say 2 years. So
well, you know what? Right when you hit me up to see if I was free to do this, I was like, I started immediately thinking. It just flashed before my eyes. My first year as a season ticket holder was 2001, and I pretty much had them every year. There's a couple years I missed, but pretty much had them every year until I moved here to Vegas in 2019. So almost 20 years as a season ticket holder. And 2001, Deshaun Foster ran for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns at the Rose Bowl, and I was there against Washington. Phenomenal game. And then a few years later, Maurice Drew broke both those records in Seattle.
That's when Washington hit the dark years. Like Washington, I remember Washington as a fucking growing up on the East Coast, like a West Coast powerhouse. I mean, UCLA was really good too in the 90s, but Washington, I remember like they went to Miami when Miami was loaded.
Yep.
And played.
They were winning natties.
Yeah. They
like
played
the early '90s.
Mark Brunell and Mark Bruner and Corey Dillon and like those teams were Lawyer Malloy. Those teams were fucking filthy. They were filthy.
Napoleon Kaufman.
Yeah. Oh man, he was so nasty. He was so nasty in college. But then they hit in the early 2000s after Neuheisel, and I'm not a Neuheisel guy. After he got in trouble because he submitted a fucking NCAA tournament bracket.
Yeah, dude. That was so stupid.
What kind of crock of shit is the? Oh, don't get me started on the NCAA, but that is some nonsense.
Yeah, that was.
After he gets fired essentially from that. I know there was also some things with Jeremy Stevens and stuff, but Then they went through some really fucking dark years. They were really bad for like pretty much a decade. And Sarkisian, to his credit, even though I'm not much of a Sarkisian believer, he did get that program to at least start making bowls, and then Chris Peterson got all the way back on track.
No, I've always wanted to go sailgating there too. So I mean, that's the kind of vibe and the atmosphere. I mean, look how the Seahawks fans are. Like, that's a fan base that'll get behind stuff. So I mean, you just need the right coach there, and they're obviously doing great right now. I mean, two 4-0 teams. I'm glad we get to see that, on a Friday night, matchup like this. That's a lot of fun,
And bringing in Kalen DeBoer, which I thought was such a good hire. I mean, this guy was great at Fresno State. He was great as an offensive coordinator at Fresno, the first stint, and then at Indiana, where Michael Penix was quarterback. So now he brings in Penix to Washington, and now the Huskies are rolling. The Huskies haven't hit the road yet, though. UCLA did just hit the road. They took down Colorado and Boulder, but this one should be a dandy Friday night. But yeah, okay. So I mean, are you gonna miss this game much as a UCLA fan?
This is one of those ones where you always as a fan, especially every other year but then once they switched to the new Pac-12 format, where it's it started rotating, where all of a sudden you're seeing them every 4 years at the Rose Bowl, and so I think it's lost its luster over the last decade or so. We're growing up. This is a much bigger game. I
also think the fact that Los Angeles, and you might be able to attest to this better than me because I wasn't here before, but there's so many transplants. So I think, I remember we had Randy Cross on the show, and off air, I guess he was telling us about how, man, he goes, UCLA fans used to show up and he goes, it's different now, man. It's different. And I just wonder if the amount of transplants that come into Los Angeles because the entertainment industry has been a direct result of that, or just winning. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a combination of those things. I think, they didn't ever establish their brand the way SC did during the Pete Carroll years. And so there's a whole generation of people growing up that UCLA really is just a clown school. I mean, whereas for me, when I was growing up, they dominated that rivalry in the 90s, winning 8 in a row. It was it's a very exciting time to be a Bruin fan.
A lot of people don't remember this, and I am noted for saying there's never been a national champion in the history of college football. I really believe that. But in 1998, UCLA was supposed to play at Miami in early September. There was a hurricane, much like we're about to get hit with the hurricane this weekend. In Florida. Yeah. That game got canceled, and then they added it again in December.
It was December 5th too. It was a week into December. It was and then Edgerrin James ran all over them in that game.
but look, and back then you didn't play 12 games, you played 11. So that gap was even bigger. And then I thought one of the terrible things in that game was Danny Farmer. I believe it was Danny Farmer, that wide receiver for UCLA.
And beach volleyball player. Don't sell him short.
Yeah. Well, I thought UCLA had that game won. There was a questionable fumble in that game. UCLA would have played for the national championship that year, and I think should have, because I thought that call was absolutely fucking terrible. And I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole there, but
that was the first year of the BCS.
Yeah, and that was a crock of shit. That call, I almost think I don't know. I had some David Stern conspiracy beliefs on that call.
That was brutal.
30 seconds. Yeah. But anyway, UCLA struggled to establish their brand. I know you heard Coach Mora on the intro, the UConn coach now, Jim Mora, who's been on the show before too. But under him, they actually did have 10-win seasons. It just never really got rolling.
Well, yeah, and you look at just the way the program overall has been mismanaged the last 10 years, looking at the Under Armour deal, and where this has nothing to do with the coaching staff or anything, but stuff like this will drive fans away. And I mean, I definitely think the attendance so far this year is being hit by the move to the Big Ten. It's a direct.
And what are you doing playing your games? Okay, it was bad enough if you were in LA, the heat problems that we were having, some of the hottest days in the history of Los Angeles, but then playing your game at 11 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
Well, I think that's the Pac-12 network trying to be dicks about it, because the games aren't getting picked up by Fox or ESPN. So Pac-12 Network has, like, they basically have them under their mercy for games like that. And I mean, part of that is scheduling week too. I mean, but I'll say this, like, and we, I've talked about this like off the air before, where it's like, it's about time they schedule a week, because they were scheduling ridiculous for decades. And it's like, hey, like, give yourself a little advantage by doing what Alabama does, doing what Clemson does, and getting those cupcakes in there on the non-conference side.
And some of this wasn't even UCLA's fault. Like, if people see UCLA played their first ever FCS team, Alabama State, this year. And that game was actually supposed to be Michigan, and Michigan canceled. Michigan was supposed to play at the Rose Bowl, and Michigan canceled. So they actually had a Power 5 on the schedule. So you still would have been playing 10 Power 5s. But yes, it is a little lighter than years past, because I know a lot of years you'll do, another Power 5 matchup, and then like BYU and San Diego State, which is just insane. You're playing fucking quality teams. But so
a couple years ago, what was it, like Oklahoma, Cincinnati, and someone else? It was, it was like
San Diego State. You're just like, whoa, what are you doing? Relax. It's like Colorado being this bad right now. Look, and Colorado's not a good football team. I'll be the first to tell you that. However, if you gave them Michigan's schedule, out of conference, that is, they would be 3-0. And I think without a sweat, they would be 3-0, because that's how bad Michigan's out of conference schedule is. But Colorado instead played, Colorado's 3 out of conference opponents right now are 14-1. TCU,
they were all
Air Force and Minnesota. I mean, fucking insane. But anyway, let's hop into this, because I am very curious your take on what the Rose Bowl will be like. And I should mention that shout out to Justin Decker, friend of the program. But he did offer me a free ticket to this, but I could not make it. So I want
he'll be there with my brother. They have season tickets together. They still carry on my tradition and our seats there. So too bad you can't make it, man. Like, because it's gonna be a fun one. I do think it'll be borderline lit for the Rose Bowl on a Friday. No, I think that here's the problem with this one, because this is finally they get a night game, and it's a Friday night game. So there's not gonna be that all day tailgate experience. I think that's gonna kind of make it a weird vibe going into the stadium. However, the stadium does sell alcohol on the inside finally, after a long time of not doing that. So people still be able to get turned up in there properly. I feel like,
why don't they play it? So look, I am not a fan of SoFi. I'm a fan of the Rose Bowl by far over SoFi. However, I do think that's another thing that hurts them, is the fact I don't care what day of the week it is. On a Friday, I live in Santa Monica. To get to the Rose Bowl at 7:00 is basically like you're driving from Vegas to San Diego.
Yeah, you would need to leave at like 4:00, 3:30, really. Like seriously.
That hurts the hell out of them. I'm sure that hurts the hell out of them. So, I mean, I just wonder if they would ever consider.
Yeah, because you don't have that crazy campus thing. I do think it helps them, though, in a weird way of, like, they are kind of the team of the San Gabriel Valley. And so they have a fan base, and historically will, like, in that Pasadena neighborhood area, and like extending out through the San Gabriel Valley, like, where I am one of those people that it was a quick jump down the freeway to get there. And so that's kind of our local team in a weird way, like, so, and that's kind of really an untapped market for the rest of the city, because like the rest of the teams either playing like downtown or on the west side, kind of, like.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
That's why I think like the Angels should move to Long Beach. I think they would kill it in Long Beach instead of Anaheim. I think that would be a smart move.
I agree. I mean, that would be. I mean, we could talk Long Beach State football all day here, but
dude, Titans versus 49ers football was something to behold in the 80s.
They gotta bring back those football programs, man.
They do.
I mean, I remember. I don't know. I mean, I could go down the rabbit hole of what George Allen, the final coach of Long Beach State. But look, we got to talk about the game here. Before
he also coached at Whittier College from my hometown.
That's right. George Allen, Washington Redskins head coach. Look, I want to tell you folks out there that the college football experience UCLA Washington game preview episode is brought to you by WinBet. Bet $100 at WinBet and get a $100 free bet. Head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WinBet. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. We're also brought to you by Babbel. If you're like me and there's a foreign language that you regret not learning in school, or you live in Los Angeles where you need a foreign language to talk to pretty much anybody. If It's never too late to start with Babbel. All right, Babbel, the language learning app that sold more than 10 million subscriptions. That's more than the White Album sold, I think, Scott.
Whoa.
Anyway, anyway, that's what I mean. I mean, look,
even after Charles Manson plugged in,
even after that Manson PR run, look, with Babbel, you only need 10 minutes to complete a lesson. I mean, how great is that for people like me and Scott? I'm sure, to me, I can't handle these 4-hour long movies. I can handle 4-hour college football podcasts, but 4-hour long movies, no. Give me a 10-minute Babbel Spanish lesson, and I'm all in, man. I'm all in. And look, it's not only Spanish; they have 14 different languages: French, Italian, German. So there are so many ways to learn with Babbel. In addition to lessons, you can access podcasts, games, videos, stories, even live classes. Plus, it comes with a 20-day money-back guarantee. Start your new language learning journey today with Babbel. Right now, you can get up to 55% off your subscription when you go to babbel.com/SGP. That's BABBEL.com/SGP for up to 55% off your subscription. Babbel, language for life. All right. Look, now this matchup is very interesting because you can make a case, with Michigan canceling that game, UCLA's schedule has been super soft. It really has. That's not all their fault. But at the same time, Washington beat Stanford. They beat Michigan State, but we kind of don't know how good those teams are. Michigan State just lost 38-7 at home to Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, man, like Michigan State, like even looking at last year, I know you were all over this, but like, yeah, they had a really good record, but they had a lot of breaks there go their way. They could have easily been a 4-8 team last year. Like,
yeah. I mean, that Michigan game, there was a few of them where, and I get it. Like, some people came back at me this past week when Washington State and Oregon played. And I said, man, Washington State let them off the hook. And they're like, well, Oregon outgained them by a ridiculous amount, which is true. They did. And I cite that on Michigan State's podcast all the time when I talk about that. But I still think game script matters. Washington State had a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown. So that means Oregon got 2 possessions to 0 for Washington State.
Yeah.
So it sometimes it's not always the deal breaker is if you're just outgained, but
I think yards could be one of the most deceiving stats because, like, okay, let's just say I'm consistently causing you to have short field position, making you kick off, or when you do, you're allowed to, and I'm only working with half a field or whatever every time. And then when you go down and you're able to get field goals, like I always think points per game, like there should be a metric of like points per yard, where you're looking at like points per, per play, because like I think there's something to that offensively. Because like just like a team like Iowa is never going to rank high offensively. That doesn't mean they're not efficient offensively to take advantage of the turnovers some their defense creates. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if your defense is that good and sets you up, then like I said, Washington State was winning for 57 minutes. So to me, they were doing something right.
That was a brutal beat, man. I was watching that at the sports book. I had the money line.
Brutal. But I'm sure these Husky fans are happy about that one because now they say, hey, first place is at stake here. We go down to Pasadena. Both these teams, Scott, charting pretty well defensively. Currently, UCLA is the 20th ranked defense in America. Washington, the 22nd ranked defense in America. And when it comes to offense, UCLA is currently ranked 12th, but the Washington Huskies are ranked 5th. Considering how bad Washington was on offense last year, you're seeing the effect of a very good offensive coach, Kalen DeBoer.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. I don't care if if you think the schedule's soft or not. Last year they fucking scored 7 points against Montana.
Let's look at what he did as a coach last year at Fresno State coming into the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, but exactly. Fresno went into the Rose Bowl and won in a crazy game. That game was fantastic. Yep. So you got both these teams squaring off at each other. I'm seeing the line sitting at 3 currently, but what do you think the key is for UCLA to basically, take down the Huskies at home and remain unbeaten? Is it just, hey, we're a veteran team, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's our decision maker, and just limit the turnovers and play our brand?
Let Zach Charbonnetand pound it first off. I mean, I think that's a big factor. He needs to get 25-30 carries in this game and really wear that defense down because he's a big physical. I see him climbing up the NFL draft boards more and more lately, where like in some cases he's people's number 2 back prospect for next year. Dude, the guy's 6'1", 225, physical back. That's the kind of guy you want to wear a defense out with, because that does set up a lot of the read option stuff with DTR and a lot of that RPO stuff where, dude, I think the real key to the matchup for them, though, is Jake Bobo, because he's starting to emerge as a legit number 1 option in the receiving game. And the more he steps up there and the more he can help move the chains on third down, that's so huge for this offense, because you can keep pounding with Charbonnet knowing that you have him on those 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 plays. Like,
at Bobo, 15 receptions, 221 yards on the season, almost 15 yards a grab. So him and Casimir Allen that make a pretty good.
And they're a great little kind of like the big tall guy and the short shifty guy. Like, they both bring a lot of speed to the table, but they bring different elements to the game. Casimir Allen's great on a lot of those jet sweeps and stuff too. So, I mean, there's so many ways you can get both these guys in game. And I think that's going to be a real key, hitting them on the outside with those guys, because it's going to open up that middle for Charbonnet to really do some damage.
I also think you got to highlight DTR's running capability. And you could say the same maybe with Penix, but I think DTR is even more of a rush.
I like to pronounce it Penix.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, getting a little bit off topic here. Are you happy with the Chip Kelly era?
Yeah. I mean, I think he got kind of a raw deal because people were expecting the results he had at Oregon right away, but people forget he was the Oregon's recruiting and offensive coordinator for a couple of years.
And so, Mike Pilati set him up with a great team.
It was like set up to do it his way exactly from day one there. Whereas at UCLA, like rebuilding from the Mora era, which like it's not that Mora set him up pretty good prospect wise. It was just one of those things where those guys didn't really fit his system, and it took a couple years to get that together. And by the time it started clicking together, COVID hits.
Hey, that's one that I like, even with the Scott Frost thing. And I was one that I thought Frost was going to work out at Nebraska. And I still think like, okay, he probably deserves to be fired, but I think it was incredibly hard on all those coaches that are trying to establish their teams, that hiring class from right there in 18. You saw Dan Mullen fired. You saw Scott Frost fired. Chip Kelly was one of those hired right then. And you got hit with COVID in the middle and like the critical year, because year 2 to year 3, I feel like you're really trying to, get everything intact. And especially out here in Los Angeles. I mean, it was, I traveled the country during COVID. Look, fucking different than Oklahoma. All right. Like, or Texas or something like LA, you could not fucking find an open place anywhere. You know what I mean? So I think they really got hit with COVID during that stretch. So I actually think he's doing a good job.
I do too. Cause like, I think we're just seeing a little bit, COVID kind of delayed it a little bit. We saw it last year where the program team went 8-4, and dude, running up 60+ points in the Coliseum against USC is always a successful year for most UCLA fans. Show me a UCLA fan upset about a coach that in year 4 is running up 60 points on SC in the Coliseum. We will take that every time.
You're right, though. You are right. And look, I've heard people, coming into the season that were saying, well, it's a make or break year for Chip Kelly. I'm like, no, I don't think it really is. Like, I don't think as long as he's like bowl eligible, I think this thing's going in the right direction. And it's kind of what I thought it would be.
What's a crazy fact about this program right now? Going back to Mora, where his first year was 2012. So that's 11 seasons. This is the 11th season. They've broken camp with only 3 starting quarterbacks. Like, other guys have started games because of injuries in that time, but Brett Hundley, Josh Rosen, and now the 5th-year senior DTR.
Wild. That is wild. When you compare that to some schools that have probably gone, I mean, Washington, for example, is probably going through, 10 quarterbacks in that same era.
Yeah, no, it's really like there's some stability there, like building forward, I think, and dude, let's talk about the defense a little bit, because I think those kids from North Texas are making a serious impact on this pass rush.
Oh, those guys are studs. They are absolute studs. What he's referring to is 2 brothers transferred over from the University of North Texas, Gabriel Murphy and Grayson Murphy. Yeah. And together, I mean, they've done a great job. I think they're combined for 3 sacks. But they gave they got hit on the defensive side of the ball. If there wasn't the transfer portal, UCLA's defense probably would have been a mess, because they lost a ton on the defensive side of the ball a season ago. But being able to go in the portal and get some key guys, like the Murphy brothers, I think has been a huge impact. And I mean, if you look at what they've done thus far, I know, like I said, the schedule was somewhat light, but 17 points in game 1, 7 in game 2, 31 in game 3, and then 17 again in game 4. They're holding opponents to a pretty respectable amount from a scoring standpoint.
No, and linebacker Bo Calvert, he can make plays too. I think they got enough guys that they can rotate, especially in that front 7, like where they're too deep at a lot of those spots. So like you can keep fresh legs out there, and I think that's going to be huge in a game like this, man. Like you need to be able to keep coming at them. Yeah, and I think also the secondary will be a spot that could really be interesting to watch the battle going on between some key receivers at Washington that we'll get to in a minute, and the secondary of the Bruins. I want to get us paid one more time before we talk about the Washington Huskies. I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. You can play in pick'em contests versus other people for a shot at winning $250,000 in cash. Holy shit, that's a lot of money. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points and for correct picks, that is, and then climb up that leaderboard for your shot to win big money every single day. And it's not only NFL, it's NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, NASCAR. Come on now, sign up now with the promo code SGPN at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app to get a first deposit match up to $25. We're also brought to you by promoguide.us. Yeah, promoguide.us is the best place to go if you're interested in plus EV betting strategies. They don't simply tell you, what team is probable to win, but more like where the best odds will be, how to track it down, how to cash in big on, because look, there's constantly changing promotions going on every single minute, I feel like. So go to promoguide.us and check out the 100% track, transparent, and proven method for betting smarter. Make sure you check out promoguide.us. We're also brought to you by Odds Trader. Yes, Odds Trader. The Odds Trader is a place to compare odds from all the major sports books. You can also compare the different sign-up codes and promo codes from sportsbook to sportsbook to assure that you get the best deal possible. It also has a bet tracker, so bettors can keep records of all your games and betting activity, which when you're talking me and Scott, I know that can become a big deal. And especially in like November and December, when sports are just flying. We're doing college basketball bets. We're doing Zed Run bets. We're doing, NBA, college football, NFL, the fucking Grey Cup. I'm no stranger to betting on the Grey Cup. You got the World Cup going on this year. You might even have a UFC, a boxing thing. I mean, we're true DJs here. So look, it organizes that for you. So folks, check out oddstrader.com/Blue Wire. OddsTrader, the number one site for all your game day bets. All right. The Huskies offensively, I'm not surprised. I think a lot of people are surprised. And I do love looking at the stat sheet for the season and seeing Sam Horde on there. Horde. You remember the Horde brothers? Brock Horde and Dwayne Horde. Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys.
It sounds like Ralph on The Sopranos. Just the Horde brothers.
It's great to see. Look, maybe next year after Penix graduates, he'll be the starter. I don't know, but Michael Penix is kicking ass right now. He's completing almost 10 yards of completion at 64%, 12 touchdowns and 1 interception. That is pretty fucking impressive. I don't care who you're playing. They also have the UVA transfer Wayne Talapapa. Probably butchering the pronunciation of that name, but I know Patty C, who's a Virginia Wahoo fan. He was upset to see him hit the portal and head to Seattle. And they kind of have a running back by a committee with Cameron Davis and Richard Newton. But I don't know that the run game will be that big of an X factor. If it is, I think it's Penix legs.
I totally agree with you there. Like and that's where I think UCLA kind of might have an edge in this game, is they are a more well-balanced offense where they can come at you with a run and pass. So it's like they can keep you off balance and they can do just enough to let DTR get out and really make some plays. Where with my man Penix, it's going to be kind of hard to like they're going to be keyed in on him from the get-go. And like, especially we're talking about like the Murphy brothers, like they got pass rushers that can get after him. And hey, he's got the kind of legs and stuff that can beat you too. So I mean, just because they're going to get after him, trust me, that could be a bad thing sometimes with some of these good quarterbacks. because like you put the pressure on them in the backfield and they burn you for 25 yards on their feet. So, but I do think I think that the Bruins can, because I'm really impressed with this defensive coaching staff this year so far. They made some changes in the offseason. There's some tough calls, but I think that they can dial up the pressure, but remain conservative enough in the coverage schemes to just kind of let him make mistakes.
Yeah, but I do think that is the area, and I know Fresno State with Kalen DeBoer, the head coach of Washington, used to be at Fresno. The way he was able to have success last season in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, taking on UCLA, was hitting Jake Haener to Jalen Cropper and some of these Josh Smith, I believe these exciting wideouts there at Fresno. And believe it or not, people coming into this season at Washington, they said, hey, they don't have receivers. It might take them some time. No, not the case. Instantly, Kalen DeBoer has found some very good wide receivers. Jalen McMillian is lighting it up. 21 receptions, 367 yards.
Yeah, I was gonna bring him up, man. McMillian is the guy that scares me on this team right now. Like Penix to him scares me more than anything else they bring to the table. But if you can key in on that, I feel like it opens a lot of stuff up. Yeah,
but still, that passing game I think has been way ahead of where people thought it would be.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Also have Jalen Polk and Odunze and Giles Jackson. It is a good passing attack, and I do think if Washington is going to win this game, they're going to have to exploit, I guess, a secondary that hasn't been. I don't want to say the secondary is not good for UCLA. It's just it hasn't really been tested. Colorado couldn't throw to save their life. South Alabama is probably the best throwing team that you've seen, and they're not. I would still not describe them as a pass happy team. Alabama State, they don't throw. I mean, they don't even score the ball well offensively, no matter what it is. And then Bowling Green, I guess you could say maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and also, Quentin Lake was such a big part of the secondary in the last couple of years there, and so him being in the NFL now, we haven't seen that true leader emerge in that secondary. So maybe when we say they're not tested yet, they also have they're a little maybe don't have that big marquee guy like they did last year, kind of thing. So
yeah. So I think that is going to be key. And the defensive side of the ball, I feel like Washington's been good on the defensive side of the ball for quite a while. You look at and see, they have a guy on the D line, Braylon Trice, that is going to be in the NFL. He's got 4.5 sacks already. Him and then Zion Tupulula Fitui. Those two guys.
They always have these big 300-pound defensive linemen that just wreck shop. That's the thing about Washington, dude.
I feel like they just keep a recruiting, they have a recruiting coordinator that just is in the Samoan Islands. You know what I mean? Like they just saying, hey, okay, this guy's going to be good. He's only in 8th grade. Let's give him a scholarship.
Yeah, he's already 285, 6'3" in 8th grade. We better get on him now.
Well, I want that job where I can just hop around Hawaii and all the other islands right there. Just pay me some money and I'll just watch football on an island and drink cocktails. But
become a big wave surfer, man, like big Patrick Swayze in Point Break.
Yeah, man. All right. I would love to do that. I could be Johnny Utah. All right. I could be Johnny Utah. Could fake a knee injury, but mine wouldn't be from the Rose Bowl with Keanu Reeves. His character hurt his knee in the Rose Bowl at Ohio.
Yeah, he hurt his knee, and that's why he didn't go pro. But he ended up joining the FBI.
That's what I'm saying. I could do that. But I hurt my knee at the bowling. There we go. I tore my knee up bowling. But this
better than me. I pulled a muscle in my ribs just sleeping. So
hey, that happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it happens. Depends how many margaritas you had the night before. But, dude, this defense is good. The linebacker position, Cam Bright, Alfonso Tupulala, that guy's a fucking beast. Leads the team on the tackles, 23 tackles on the team, 3 sacks. I'm telling you, this Washington defense is pretty damn good. They also have linebacker Carson Bruner. Does that name sound familiar from the University of Washington? Yes, the tight end Mark Bruner that played for the Pittsburgh Steelers is a Washington Husky. You can ask Miami fans about him back in '92 because he scorched them. I actually think this defense is pretty good. They haven't been tested on the road, but they have played some decent. Like Stanford can actually move the ball offensively. They can.
Yeah, McKee's a pretty damn good quarterback. I don't think Stanford gets enough credit. And also, people get in their head that Stanford's still this ground and pound team where they become far more of a finesse team the last few years. So, they're not quite that smart kid that beats you up Stanford anymore. They're much more of like going back to their roots as a finesse program. And that's why they've struggled.
Yeah. I don't know why they would do that, but either way, I feel like this is where we're in for a treat Friday night here. I want to get to the over under in a second, but I one more time, I got to get us paid. I want to tell you folks out there that the college football experience is brought to you by the Elias Game Plan app. Yes. Did you know that the best day of the week is actually Monday, Thursday, and Sunday because it's NFL season over at the Elias Game Plan app, and that's their favorite time of year. It's the Elias Game Plan app. You might be familiar with the name Elias Game Plan, from the Elias Sports Bureau, the official statisticians of U.S. pro sports leagues. They have this brand new app that is fantastic. They'll give you league validated news, league team validated stats. I mean, all this stuff, head to head comparisons ahead of the matchups, not just that week. I'm talking, you want to know what's happening in week 15? They already got that for you, as well as they'll help you, with your fantasy teams, fantasy lineups, as well as give you an advantage with betting, tell you which games you should be betting on. Elevate your NFL season today and download the Elias Game Plan app. That's ELIAS. And right now, if you do, I have a special offer for you. Get 15% off your annual subscription, but only if you use the promo code SGPN15. Find the Elias Game Plan sports betting app in the App Store or Google Play Store. Once again, promo code SGPN15. We're also brought to you by Fubo TV. If you watch football, you need Fubo TV. Fubo TV gives you complete coverage of college and pro football with NFL Red Zone plus games in 4K at no extra charge. Right now, you can try Fubo TV for free for 7 days and get 15% off your first month. Just go to FuboTV.com/SGP. That's FUBOTV.com/SGP. We're also brought to you by Sling TV. It's college football season, which means you need the unbeatable coverage of Sling TV starting at $35 a month. Sling has all the biggest games on the biggest channels like ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN3, SEC Network, ACC Network, Fox, and the Big Ten Network, all for the best price. You can stream it on any device, record up to 50 hours with included DVR space. You can pause or change your service at any time. Check out sling.com for special offers. Sling, the live TV you love for a price you'll love. Try us today. Notice how they didn't say the Pac-12 network in there. Anyway, this game.
Don't get me started on it, dude. Don't get me started.
Larry Scott sitting there somewhere. Just
polishing his first nickel like he was Scrooge McDuck, dude.
You think he's employed by anyone, or is he just still living off that Pac-12 blood money?
He better not be, dude. Like he's one of those guys that's like, I wouldn't hire him to run a lap. Okay.
Oh man. So I'm looking at this game right now. I'm seeing a over under at 66. So as much as we just hype both their defenses, Vegas is saying, hey, their defense is all right, but these offenses are fine tuned. A lot of scoring projected in this matchup. Do you have a lean on 66?
I saw 64.5. So 66 doesn't really change my thought. I was leaning over on this one. I could see this being in the 70s. No problem.
I think so too. I think you're looking at probably like a, 42-35 type of game. Something
I was thinking like 42-38. Yeah. Like 45, 42, even something like that. Yeah. I can definitely see this being a shootout, and I think it's going to come down to the quarterback that takes care of the ball.
Yeah.
And for UCLA, what they got to do is what they've been doing the last couple of weeks is they keep getting these really dumb fouls on third down defensively. And this defense is so much better that you need to get off the field quicker, not commit these bad roughing the passer calls that are on an incomplete pass where you're just letting them extend these drives. Like, I really feel like this defense could be a top 5 defense if they just cut out a lot of these dumb pass interference and roughing the passer calls.
Well, I mean, the last couple times they've played this game in Pasadena. So last time they played in 2018, damn, it's been that long since they came to Pasadena.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think COVID factored into that, but it's like the way that they juggled this, where it's like, okay, and I get you have to keep Stanford and Cal as like the in division, like out of division, like in-state rivalry games that you keep every year. But it sucks because you only play the Oregon and Washington schools every other year, or like so many. It just
yeah. But at least you have the non-game schedule. It's not like the SEC when you're playing like, hey, Texas A&M's playing South Carolina at South Carolina for the first time in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess A&M's a bad example because they're the newest team to the SEC. But you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Like a Kentucky Ole Miss game. Rarely happens.
Yeah. Like, coming to Oxford, Mississippi for the first time since 1998. And it's like, what the fuck? It's like, are you even in the same conference? Last time this game happened in Pasadena, Washington won 31-24. The previous matchup, though, UCLA won 41-31. And the one before that, UCLA won 24-23. Actually, UCLA was on one there. They won the one prior to that too, 44-31. So it's been a tough place for Washington. Just one in the past 5 that I'm seeing here. And this all-time series, by the way, UCLA holds the lead 40-33. And there was 2 ties back when football.
That was a thing.
Yeah, that's one thing. Look, I know a lot of people say, Colby, you're an old soul. You like the old football. Ties, absolutely terrible. The NFL needs to fix that as well.
Couldn't agree more.
I mean, come on, dude. If I'm gonna go sit at a game all day or watch the
NHL used to drive me crazy with that because it was always like, dude, just do the shootout at the end. It'll take 10 minutes more, and we'll have a winner. And then they finally did it, and it's way better.
The reward of seeing the fucking game. A tie is not a reward. Here we are, Washington -3. Now this jumped all the way up. I think it was even at 4 at one point. Now it's down to 3. And I'm curious. I mean, you're a UCLA guy, so I think you are going to go Bruins +3. But any interest in riding that money line of what plus?
Yeah, I do like the money line because like just seeing like it open up. I always see when there's that big of a line movement due to public action. Like, hey, I maybe kind of trust those original handicappers more than I trust John Q. Public here.
And I was, I think Scott's referring to the fact I was telling him this pre-episode that I was like, from what I'm seeing here, it opened at UCLA -3. I don't know that that's 100% true, but what I am seeing right now, maybe this is an error by the app that I am using, but if so, that's a 6-point swing, which is fucking
huge.
I mean, I know college football has these crazy line movements that are just crazy compared to the NFL, but still, that is a gigantic swing right there. I'll tell you though, man, I get playing the money line here, especially when I rattle off the history and seeing UCLA's success.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a lot of those games, and like I've seen this over and over where good Washington teams come in there and get dealt with, like, and especially on a Friday night game like this. I don't know. I think there's going to be a little magic in the air, especially after Troy Aikman calling out the fans, dude. So you gotta,
Randy Cross was saying, "What's going on, fans? You got to show up to these things." So I gotta be honest though. You're my pal. I love you, but at the same time, I believe in Kalen DeBoer as a head coach, and not that I don't believe in Chip Kelly. I just think when you've played 4 teams, the caliber that you have now, like I said, Washington hasn't left, and maybe the caliber Stanford and Michigan State will end up being weak. I think this offense is going to fly, and I'm going to take Washington, lay in the 3 at 3.5 or 4, which it was a couple days ago. Then I get concerned because I think it could be a field goal game, but I do think Washington is going to win this one. I think the fact that this place probably will not be lit helps Washington. So I am going to lay the points with the Huskies. I know you hate me. You can talk about how much you hate me right now.
Oh, no. I mean, I understand. Like, they are ranked 15th in the country or whatever. I mean, it's like this isn't like a hot take alert or anything, but I honestly, based on the history of this rivalry, and I think the balance that UCLA's offense brings, where just they're able to run the ball. I mean, it's not that Washington can't run the ball. They're averaging like 168 yards a game, 162 yards a game to UCLA's 220. I just think that balance that they bring offensively right now is going to be able to do enough to keep them off balance and keep Penix off the field. Because like I do think that could be a factor of Washington's defense getting gas late because they haven't managed the clock properly, and Zach Charbonnetand is just pounding the ball late.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You make a lot of sense there. I cannot wait for this matchup, folks. Look, I mean, this is a must-watch game. This game's awesome. Get yourself in front of a TV Friday night and watch this game. You got to support this old rivalry because Scott's already telling me that the Purdue UCLA rivalry 17 years from now is going to be absolutely fantastic. But no, Scott, come back on a college basketball episode too. I'm excited to talk Bruin basketball.
Oh yeah, man. Amari Bailey this season and Adam Bone. I'm excited with some of these recruits. And I mean, Johnny Juzang off, went on to greener pastures, but we still got Tiger Campbell. Still got Jaime Jaquez. I love this team, man. Like,
yeah. I'm excited for them too, man. And I mean, any thoughts on that Purdue UCLA rivalry that you think is going to be
it's gonna be an incredible basketball rivalry, but I'm really more looking forward to that, like that Rutgers game, that Maryland game, Penn State. But no, in all seriousness though, there is already kind of a built-in rivalry against Wisconsin because we had the 2 Rose Bowl losses in them in the 90s and then played them in a Sun Bowl or 2 as well during that era. So there is kind of a historic rivalry against Wisconsin. So like I am actually looking forward to those games.
The question is I'm just curious how the scheduling will work. Like how often will you see Wisconsin?
Probably not often. I really think this is going to become like, I think 2 more Pac-12 teams is going to end up joining. If you want my honest prediction, like Oregon and Washington or Cal Stanford, or something like that. And the Big Ten is basically going to, or try to get all of those teams, the 4 California schools, Oregon and Washington. And then now they have a 6-team West Coast pod.
I could see that too. But their slice of the pie gets smaller. And I think that's the hard part right now. Kevin Warren has to go to those school presidents and say, look, you and I both been talking about this for years, where we're headed to the era of like, it's eventually going to be 4 super conferences, most likely. Yeah. And like, hey, but if that sets up like a sick ass 2014 playoff, I'm all in. Yeah. I mean, 2014 playoff.
I will not settle for anything less than 2014 playoff. However.
I won't either. I'm pretty much at like, I think I'm like giving at 24. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of giving there. I really want.
I agree. I'm too, because I think it could be 32 very easily.
Yeah. So, folks, you know where we stand. Subscribe to the College Football Experience. He's on UCLA. He's on UCLA Moneyline. Give Scott Bowser a follow and make sure you check out his podcast. First off, he's on Twitter at Scott_Bowser, but also check out the Zed Run Podcast on Twitter at Zed Podcast. You can give them a follow, but also just check them out in general, wherever podcasts can be found. Yes, iTunes, get the SGPN app. You'll have access to it. Also the Luck Stops Here pod. I know myself, my brother been on that show as well. Check out that. Scott does great work. Appreciate you hopping on the show. And
thank you, buddy. This is fun.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. Let's talk Bruin football or basketball. It's always great.
And baseball too. I'm down with college baseball. So
there we go. Subscribe to the College Baseball Experience. Noah Beanick doing a great job there. Also check out the Sports Gambling Podcast. Folks, it's NFL season right now, NFL Gambling Podcast, the whole platform's on fire. All right. Whether it's College Football Experience, College Basketball Experience, just dropped the Duke preview and the North Carolina preview. Go listen to that. Yeah. We're in the thick of it.
Dude, our boy, Canadian Football Jim doing his thing.
Oh, CFL Gambling Podcast. Check that out. Yes. CFL Jim doing a great job. And the road to the Grey Cup still going on. We do not discriminate. We love Canadian Football League because they rarely play in a dome. So right. I mean, disproving all these theories of of all these other dome teams. But anyway, look, check out that NBA Gambling Podcast, NFL Gambling Podcast. The list goes on and on and on.
Hockey coming up, buddy.
Hockey. Loves man. You're a Ducks or a Kings guy?
I'm a Kings guy, big time.
Okay, there you go.
Ducks were an expansion team when I was like in 8th grade, dude. They don't even count in my mind.
Yeah, and you always hated Emilio Estevez too, right?
He's all right. He's all right.
I'm joking.
I like movies about guys that get DUIs.
Like he won you over at Men at Work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Young Guns, dude. Come on. Repo Man. You want to go? I mean, come on.
I love Repo Man. Don't start with Repo Man, folks. Yeah. I can do a whole Repo Man podcast. Folks, subscribe. We appreciate you. Take the Huskies, says Dundee. Take the Bruins, says Scott Bowser. Listen to the Zed Run Podcast. All right, this is the College Football Experience. Washington at UCLA Friday night game preview. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
And the weather here today at Notre Dame Stadium, in a word, it is cold, but it is football weather. The temperature 37 degrees, humidity 79%. Forecast cloudy for light rain later on this afternoon.
Thank you. Well, this is a great way to get started. And I haven't even won all my games yet. It's a great night to be a Tiger. I'm here with my family. What the fuck did I do wrong, Tom? And sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
The Redskins want a new stadium. The owner, Jack Foot, and he wants it indoor. I heard an indoor stadium. The Redskins cannot play indoors. I mean, how can you see fun? How can this guy play indoors? Oh, these guys agree with me. No dome, no fake grass. Domes and fake grasses.
Because when you're in East Carolina, you go for it every time. And you're nothing but a chameleon, lemon-headed, coward, terror pussy. And I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it tonight.
Coaching, coaching did a horrible job. The players did a horrible job. We got our ass kicked in the second.